to the soul. To look into someone's eye was to see straight into their heart. I think there may be some truth in this. Looking into someone's eyes? Well, I remember my dad, if he wasn't completely convinced that something I told him was 100% accurate or true, he would say to me, "Look me in the eye and tell me that again." You see, it's difficult for us to pretend with our eyes. Now, there's a lot we can fake with our voice and our body and our gestures, our facial expressions, but the eyes, that's much harder, maybe impossible. We look down, we look away. There's a reason when we feel guilty that we avoid eye contact, because to see into someone's eyes is indeed to see into the soul. And if someone sees into our soul, they might see that we are indeed guilty. And so the landowner asks the laborer, "Is your eye evil because I am good?" In other words, is there something wrong in your heart? Are you jealous or envious? Are you coveting something just because I'm choosing to do something good? Well, that question makes me wonder. What would we see if we would get a chance to look into the eyes of God? What is at the heart of God? What will you see looking into God's very soul? Well, at least according to this parable, you will see generosity, sheer generosity. You see, at the root of this parable is the fundamental understanding that there is a difference between fairness and generosity. Now, fairness is about making sure that things are all balanced, and fairness is good. It's important, and clearly the workers in the field were thinking about fairness. But generosity is something different. Generosity is about a radical giving that changes and transforms lives. It is about giving with no strings attached and no expectations. It gives without regard to fairness. It just gives. So the key to the story is the contrast, between the reactions of those who came in the last hour and the reactions of those who came in the first hour. Now, can you imagine being one of those who were given a full day's wage when they'd only worked that last hour? They felt that the wage was undeserved, unearned, a wonderful gift from the landowner. This wage was a joy, a surprise, a wonderful delight. Now, I know people of faith who walk around with this kind of a worldview. To them, God's generosity is unearned and undeserved. They are continually surprised and joyful at the gifts of God. Such Christians have this attitude that life has been a wonderful gift, and they approach the world that way. I believe that if you look into the eyes of these kind of people, they would reflect the grace of God. I want to be like these people. But what about the people in our parable who were hired at 6 a.m., the grumpy people? The ones who worked all day, who were upset at the landowner's generosity? Well, there's a faith parallel here, too. Now, these people take pride in their faithfulness. They are active and busy. They get annoyed at those they consider slackers, and kind of like the Pharisees of Jesus' day, they're concerned with following all the rules. They wear their faithfulness like merit badges. Now, I have been around these people, too. I actually think that from time to time, I probably have been one of these people. I think that sometimes we take for granted the idea that radical generosity and love that comes from Jesus. And we sometimes lose that sense of wonder that comes from experiencing God's grace and God's generosity. Like those workers in the morning, we can sometimes say, "Hey, what about us? We've been faithful for a long time. We deserve. Shouldn't there be something extra for us?" Well, God looks at us and says, "What's in your eye? Is that jealousy? Do you covet? It need not be. I am the giver of all good gifts, and grace is for you, just as it is for all these others. And I am God, and I get to choose how and when and who I give to. And then we're reminded to keep the horse before the cart. Our God is not measuring fairness. Our God is not counting good deeds or offerings or hours spent in church. Our God gives abundantly to all. Our God provides love and grace for all. And God sent Jesus to bring life, love, and forgiveness for all. Our God is generous. And because we receive these things, then we are free to serve, to love, and to live faithful lives. Like little kids under the Christmas tree, we don't need to count the presents. We don't need to worry about fairness. We just need to receive the abundant gifts of God. Because of Jesus, there is more love, more grace, more forgiveness, more peace than we could ever possibly need. The eye is the window into the soul. Today and every day, look into the eyes of God. See the love, goodness, and generosity that is there. And then pray. Pray that our own eyes can reflect this grace, so that when others look into our eyes, they can come to know the gifts and generosity that God brings through Jesus. Amen. Amen. In college, I worked as an audio technician in the school's media services department. We set up and ran sound and video systems for everything from small one-person presentations to major concerts hosted on campus. Now, this was back in the day before we really cared about minor little details like safety, liability, things like that. So sometimes those of us student workers would find ourselves in kind of precarious positions. For example, we'd be in the hockey arena, prepping it to host a conference with thousands of participants coming. And we'd have to climb up these ladders up into the rafters, 50 feet over the concrete floor. And then we'd have to pull these giant speakers up, hand over hand with rope, into